Hey everyone, welcome back to the Coalition for Marriage YouTube channel. You are in for a treat today. But before we get to that wonderful treat, let me just remind you we are the UK's largest pro-marriage organisation representing individuals and groups who support this thing called one man, one woman marriage. And that's not to say, every time I say, other things take place, adults maybe do what they want to do in a society, in a liberal democracy, but actually one man, one woman marriage is special, it's unique. The benefits it brings to children, to adults, to wider society need to be separated because it's that special. Nothing else compares. And when it comes down to talking to kids about these things, really we need to emphasize the importance of marriage and not stick it in with everything else, even to the degree that it gets excluded sometimes and or ignored. And somebody who feels very passionate about that is Lucia Thomas. Lucia, what a privilege to have you with us today. Would you like to say hello?
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me on, Tony.
So you're from an organisation called Public Child Protection Wales, and you're a group of Welsh mums who feel very, very passionately about the education system in Wales. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we speak, there's been a relationship and sexuality education has been rolled out across the schools, all schools, except for private schools that receive no funding at all from the government. So even private schools, if they receive any kind of funding, they have got to implement this RSC. Now, in Wales, we have no parental opt-out from age 3, so it's really quite it's really quite severe here. So from the age of 3, children will be taught about sexuality matters, relationship matters, and things that parents don't want their children learning about. There's a massive, we know that we've all signed up, every single UK government. We do know in Wales in particular, we had, there was a report going back, I can't remember the exact date, I think it was in 2018, recommendations that were written for this curriculum, and it was headed by a woman called Emma Reynolds. And she's she's a queer theorist, post-humanist. These were all the sort of terms that are put on her social media. Now, I don't know, Tony, if you know much about queer theory yourself. I'm not sure if you understand anything about that.
Well, I know more about the benefits of marriage, let's put it that way. That's what I stick to.
Yeah, well, queer theory, that intends to take away all the heterosexual norms. They want to take away all those norms in society to make room for all these different types of sexualities and different types of genders that they seem to come up with. And this list is growing all the time. They keep adding different varied sexualities and genders. So they want to take away that, the man-woman, the normal man-woman relationship as being a normal way of living. That's their intention. What's even more worrying, they want to break down the barriers between children and sexuality. So there's a lot of sinister undertones here that goes, sort of way, like I am concerned with the fact that marriage does seem to be reducing in importance, where people do get divorced very quickly. I myself, I've been married for, it'll be 17 years now in September. We've got 2 children together. And, I'm Tony, I'm not going to say, it's been all sort of beautiful and happy the whole time, because marriage isn't about that. It's about getting through times together.
You're absolutely right. I'll probe you further on that, because that's a really interesting topic, but I just want to catch back a little bit. You're coming at this, or there's a group of you mums who have decided, actually, no, we want to say in our children's education, and it's not just up to the government. And you've got off your settees and you've actually decided to take the government to court, and you did that, and you managed to do some crowdfunding, hire the lawyers, and actually take the government to court in a judicial review. And that, first of all, that's just fantastic, because you're not coming at this from a religious perspective or anything else like that. I don't think any of you are from that background, are you? You just think, as parents, it should be your say what your kids are taught from the age of 3.
Absolutely, especially when it comes to values. Like, if they changed a way of changed a way of maths, like how they're going to teach, like dividing and subtracting or whatever. That wouldn't be a problem for me, because I think, well, they're the experts, because the teachers are the experts in teaching things like your maths, your English, science, providing it is actual science. They're actually trained to teach these subjects. But when it comes to values, well, we've all got different values, haven't we, Tony? We all sort of come from, slightly different ways of life. But I've got to say, with our team at Public Child Protection Wales, we're not all married. We have got some single parents. We've even got one man who is gay. He's actually a gay man. And we all believe that the best way of bringing up children in this world is having a mum and a dad. We all agree it, whether or not that is their sort of way that things that have happened for them. It may not necessarily be man and woman. They do agree that it is the best way. And I have to say, in our marriage, the majority of the childcare things is actually performed by me. I am more of the nurturer. But if my children are, they do try and go past the boundaries and want to do things that, I say, you've got to be back at a certain time. I've got my husband there to support me. Generally, we support each other in making sure that we're bringing our children at the best in the best possible way.
Yeah, I get that entirely, and really you're essentially the same as us. We have a lot of supporters from all faiths and no faith at all, just like you guys, and we have people of all sorts of persuasions, single, married, everything else like that, who are our supporters, who, just like you, think there's something special about man-woman marriage. We just need to keep an eye on that and promote it, because it is the thing that seems to work best for society. And just like you, you're saying adults, can live their lives the way they want to, but let's be very careful what we teach children, because they're blank slates, and actually parents should have a say in what's written on that blank slate from a moral perspective.
Absolutely. I know from the ages of 0 to 7, a child will literally, their brains are like sponges. So anything you tell them, it's there in the brain. And we do know, there was a study actually, 87% of primary school children believe everything that their teacher tells them. So where they're bringing this education into the schools now, and we do know of actual books that are telling children, you're not necessarily, the sex you are born in doesn't necessarily mean that is the, what you need to be. They are actively encouraging children to, change their gender. A very adult, complex decision to make, and something that a child should never be encouraged to, go down that path.
Yep. Absolutely right. And agree with you 100%. Now, you had this judicial review, didn't go your way, but often these things don't on the first go. So, that's not a bad thing. In terms of taking it forward, so you're saying, well, look, and I won't go into people can look up the legal details and it's always very, very complex, and it always goes on the minute detail of this, that, or the other. And in fairness, the laws that are passed that put these things into place are always fairly bland and fairly balanced. When you look at the actual text of the law, it's the reality that changes everything, and what this turns into on the ground. And that's the sort of stuff that you're objecting to. So where do you go from here? And I'm asking you that because, I want people to know about what's going on, because hopefully if you come up with a crowdfunder again, for example, we can publicize that and we can keep people informed of where you're going on, because this really is one of those really important things, isn't it?
Absolutely. So with the crowdfund, we still have got that ongoing, because we have got the claimants. I'm not actually one of the claimants. It's 5 claimants altogether. I'm actually I'm the spokesperson for the claimants. But they have got a huge bill now to pay. So we are still raising money in order to pay that bill. The Welsh government were chasing quite vigorously. They were almost like threatening, bailiffs for the claimants. However, we have got an appeal coming forward now. So we've applied, the claimants have applied to appeal against the decision, and we're just waiting now for the court to accept that appeal. So we're sort of still we're in a bit of position now. Now, when we originally did this court case, it was to the High Court, and it was more about like the parental rights.
Mm.
Parents should have the right to opt out. That's not enough for us anyway, because we just want it out of the schools altogether.
Okay.
Some children don't have parents because, you know, there's a lot of children in the care system.
Yep.
Like me personally, I care, like my children are a little bit older. My youngest is nearly a teenager. So my youngest actually just misses this curriculum rollout by 1 year. So she just misses it. I'm concerned about every child in Wales. I don't want my children growing up in a generation of people that are confused with their sexuality, people that don't believe that a long-term marriage is the normal way to live. I don't want that for them. I want a generation of, you know, decent human beings.
I think one of the problems is that it would be good if you had one or two cases of maybe parents with kids in schools who are complaining about a specific thing, wouldn't it? Because it's hard dealing with this in abstract.
Well, we do have, because obviously the schools have been drip feeding this in. It has been drip fed. But we have had some parents coming forward to us where they have been speaking to the schools, because we've encouraged parents to go and speak to the schools directly, you know, to air their concerns. Now, I've had some parents come back saying that since they have aired their concerns, it's almost like they become a bit of a target to the school, where all of a sudden they're very well-behaved children. They're complaining about their children's behaviour, and it seems to have been when they've been. It's almost like a scare tactic.
Well, it's. I know you're one of your barristers, Paul Diamond. We've spoken to him before, and he speaks about the chilling effect. Which, you know, people are scared to object because they're scared of what the implications for their child, the implications for them, you know, being called out and the mob coming for them and that sort of stuff online. And goodness me, it takes a brave parent to stand up.
It does. And unfortunately, a lot of parents will not. They'll just accept what's going on and almost like hope for the best. We have literally, I've had parents saying about their children as young as 5, all of a sudden saying that they want to be a girl. They're a boy, very boyish boy, and all of a sudden coming out with this since this rollout. And that's no good. And there's this huge emphasis that children need to know correct terminology of their sort of genitalia, because it'll prevent them from abuse. Well, in fact, it does the exact opposite to that. You don't want children being confidently speaking to anyone about that, you know, because this actually exposes them to predators. You know, if they think that it's okay to talk about their private parts to strangers, to a school teacher, you know, in a group of 30, then they're going to think it's fine to talk about it to any adult.
What is going on? You're absolutely right. What is going on? And, you know, we've spoken to academics who study this field, and they'll be quite clear. The more you teach kids about sex, the more and the earlier they'll have sex, you know. And so what are you doing, kind of schools, you know? Stop it, really, and let the parents decide when and how much their kids are exposed to this stuff.
Yeah, and Tony, every child develops at a different stage. You know, I've got 2 children myself, and when you've got a girl, you've got to explain about changes a bit earlier than the boy, because girls do tend to go through changes at a different stage. But I've always explained it to my children in a need to know basis. And, you know, if there's any kind of sex education, it should be on a basis of abstinence.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that makes sense for society, but we seem to be doing and the reaction seems to be, oh, well, if kids are having more sex, well, we just need to give them more sex education. No, try the other thing. You're absolutely right. Try the abstinence thing, see how that works. You know, try talking about saving yourself for the one special person, because all the stats say actually there's a strong link between your likelihood of getting divorced and the number of partners you have before you get married. And that the fewer partners, the less likely that it is to be divorced. And in fact, anything above 1, in terms of the person you marry, and you're much more likely to get divorced. You know, so those stats, maybe if kids knew about them, they might think, well, yeah, I'm going to alter my decisions because I would like to have a marriage that lasts for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely,
Mm,
absolutely. I think this thing of promiscuity is it's everywhere, isn't it? It's in the music
mm,
industry.
mm,
Well, and this notion of pornography being so
mm,
accessible
mm,
to
mm.
anyone. It's actually heartbreaking because
Yeah.
those images going into children's brains. Even well, even sort of like even my brain, I don't want to see. I wouldn't want to see any of those images and any of those types of videos. But
Mm,
fortunately for me, I can switch it off. But a
mm,
child that comes across it, which it just shouldn't be a thing.
mm,
There should be
mm,
no accessibility to any child
mm,
when it
mm.
comes to these sort of images. That's
And
going to
it's
embed in
not.
their brain.
You're right, but it's also I was amazed at some of the stuff that's been taught in some schools, to underage children and the graphic nature of it. Stuff I hadn't, hadn't crossed my mind. The sorts of things that take place in certain types of relationship, and that this is being explained and taught to kids. And the only thing you need is consent. There's no wrong or right. You just need consent, and you can. Well, I can't talk about the sorts of extreme stuff that kids are taught these days, but it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and me and you and I know, Tony, children can't consent.
Yeah.
The law of consent has been put in. The law is 16 for a reason. In fact, you could actually go as far as saying 16 is too young. But the 16 is there, so for sake of argument, it is 16. So children
Mm,
under the age of consent, there's no they can't consent anyway, full stop. So it
mm,
shouldn't be a case of it's fine to
mm,
comply as long as you consent. It should
mm.
be it's always a no. No matter
Yeah,
what, it's
it's always
always a
a
no.
hard, yeah, absolute no. Yeah,
Yeah,
until you're 16, it's an absolute no.
absolutely.
You're quite right. You're quite
Yeah,
right.
it absolutely is. And I've got to say, like my own upbringing, I was brought up by mum and dad. And I went off to university when I was 18. Now, my mum was always very quite strict about me, staying over friends' houses and that. She always wanted to
Yep.
make sure that I was home. But I went
Mm,
away to university, and the embedded values that I had in my upbringing actually saved me from making a lot of very bad mistakes.
mm, mm.
So I did know of friends, girlfriends, female friends who would actually boast about the number of partners they'd had, at age
Yeah,
18. And
yeah,
it made me feel
yeah,
a little bit sort of sick, because I thought,
yeah.
why are you allowing yourself to be used that way? That's the way I
I
see
don't know
it.
if you've read, Louise Perry has written a good book, The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. She calls herself a feminist, but it's a really good book. Just arguing, saying why this sort of hookup culture is no good for girls. And she comes down to the conclusion: look, actually, the best advice from a feminist that you can give a girl is find a man, get married, and stay married. And that's the best outcome. And this is coming from one of the country's leading feminists now, and it's endorsed by lots of others. And this whole rhetoric about just behave like a man, it turns out women are different, and that's not what they want. But also, it turns out men, yes, they'll look at girls in terms of having a good time, but actually the one they want to settle down with is not the one that's had a good time in the past. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And,
this
and
is
and that's the important thing that a lot of girls miss.
exactly what I teach my children to both respect themselves and to respect
Mm,
other people, but I really lay that on thick with my daughter.
mm.
Men do not respect women who have been with all their friends.
That's
And
yeah,
that's what
yeah, yeah.
it comes down to.
Mm,
I know the things with marriage, like when you enter into a marriage, you
mm.
need to enter into that marriage. It's a lifelong commitment. It's not just
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
big party. I did have quite a big party for my wedding. I got a big family, and we had a great time. But it's not about that one day, great memories from that day, but it
Mm,
is about a
mm,
lifelong commitment. And they call it a honeymoon period when you first get
mm.
together with someone, you're getting to know each other, it's excitement. I remember the first couple of years of marriage, I didn't want to be away from my husband, like when he went to work, I really missed him. Those
Oh,
feelings are not going to continue. Then
yeah.
you can't live like that for the whole of your life, but you make your marriage fun in other ways, like only next month now I've arranged a surprise getaway for me and my husband because it's his
Mm.
birthday.
I hope he doesn't watch this because that's ruined.
No, he knows we're going away.
Oh,
He
okay.
knows we're going away, but he doesn't know where.
Right. Okay. Very nice. Well, if my wife's watching, a few hints there. I think that's a really good idea. Very nice of you to have done that, Lucia. Very good of you. But you're right. I mean, the thing about marriage is it's hard work. The work is hard, but the rewards is hard. But that thing about commitment that, we're stuck with each other no matter what. And so you're going to see my monster, I'm going to see your monster, and we're just going to have to work out a way of living together. And when you do that, the rewards are phenomenal.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. Like when we were going through problems, this was going back, I'd sort of say about 8 years ago. And, it's quite common for marriages to almost like have that little bit of a void at times, because you
Mm,
do stop, when you have
mm,
the young children, the woman's usually focusing mainly on the children, the man's there making sure that,
yep,
like John
yep,
was,
yep,
always making sure that we had enough money for bills,
yep.
and sometimes you do have that sort of drift away. And it was like that realization that, oh god, we're really gonna have to put some work into this,
Yeah, yeah.
have,
Like a nice garden. You just got
yeah,
to put regular work in, and then it's lovely. And over the years, it gets better and better. But if you let the
absolutely.
weeds grow, that's going to be a problem. So, what are the one or two factors that you would say these are the things that people, if people are kind of having a bit of a hard time, try doing this in your marriage because these are the things that kind of keep the garden maintained. Can you think of anything?
Well, I think it's having quality time together is an absolute must. Now, I
Yeah.
do know of like, when people marriage are breaking down, they're like, well, I am trying. And then you've got to
Mm,
consider, are you really trying? Or have you
mm,
already made your mind up? Because a
mm,
lot of people say they are trying, they are working on their marriage, but they've already
mm,
got their mind up. They've already
mm,
made their mind up.
mm,
Never, ever
mm,
introduce anyone else to a marriage. The grass might seem greener, but I
mm,
know of a lot of people whose marriages have broken down because they found someone else. And then they
yeah.
end up in that cycle then, because that next
Mm,
relationship
mm,
breaks down. No
mm,
matter what. And one bit of advice my mum gave me when I was younger was, what did she say? She said something like, all men are the same. And she didn't mean that you are
mm,
actually
mm,
identical. What she
mm.
meant was in a sense of being married. Now, all men are going to do your head in. So if you think that,
Yeah.
oh gosh, he's doing my head in for whatever reason, I don't know, if people come out with all sorts of reasons, like the
Mm, mm.
toilet lid is not put down or he
Yeah,
throws
yeah,
his
yeah.
socks on the floor,
Yeah.
you're going to come into problems with any kind of relationship. It's exactly the same if you're living with
Mm,
siblings. You don't live with your
mm,
siblings and don't
mm,
argue as you're
mm,
growing up. You're always going to have those arguments. So it is
mm,
really about properly working on your marriage, making sure that you have that quality time, whether it's a night out or maybe the kids go
mm.
to bed early and you have like a
Yeah,
romantic
yeah,
meal if you can't get
yeah,
babysitters,
yeah.
just making that time for the two of you.
Because I've learned that women, of course, are perfect, and it's always my fault. That's one of the key lessons of marriage. But can I just emphasize that because we were talking this morning, when are we going to get our hour together this week to go and have a cup of tea, just the two of us, no phones, nothing else, no reason, no purpose, just the two of us to have a chat together because it just evades you if you don't put it in the diary. It doesn't happen, and then you live in the same house, but you can end up being strangers because you never have time together.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Well, me and
Mm,
my husband, we both got our own businesses, so there's a lot of time
mm,
where I help him a lot. He's got the biggest business out of the two of us. I'm an accountant, so I've got an accountancy practice. Now, when I like does need a lot of my help when it comes to costing, invoicing. I don't. He's actually into solar. I don't get up on the roof. I don't do anything like that, but I do help a lot with the paperwork. So it's important for us to make sure that we have time, that we're not talking about work,
mm,
because you can sort of
mm,
get drowned
mm.
into that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
we're gonna have some time now. Switch off the
Mm,
computers. We're not talking about work or anything stressful. And it's just
mm,
about being present, isn't it? Present in the
mm,
moment.
mm. And also talking about the things that maybe you'd need to talk about, which otherwise you wouldn't get to.
Absolutely. And always being
Mm,
on the right page with the children. There may be some things that you've got like slightly different ideas about. But it is really important, well, to show a united front
yeah,
with your
yeah,
children as well.
yeah. Have the discussion between the two of you, but yeah, absolutely right. I'm so impressed with what you gals are doing. It's amazing.
Well, I think
Mm.
it's about clubbing together, isn't it? I mean, nobody can do it on their own.
Yeah, yeah.
Kimberly started it. Kimberly Isherwood. You probably see her more than
Oh yeah, yeah,
anyone
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because she's actually a criminologist. So she's been
Oh, yeah.
following this sex education since 2013, and it was only when it came to light when she found out that they had signed up to this sex education in the UK. It put she was like, "Whoa, hang on, we're not having this here."
Yeah, yeah, great,
Yeah.
great. And it's lovely that you're not coming at this from a, a Christian perspective or some other, you're just ordinary people who are saying, well, hold on, we can see the mess this is going to make of our kids, and we really don't want that.
Absolutely. We
So
get
good for
accused
you.
all the time of being you're just a
Yeah,
load of religious extremists. Now,
yeah,
I've
yeah,
got a
yeah.
I've got a problem with this. It's like, if this education or if this country is all about inclusivity, why are they always sort of like saying, oh, well, if you're religious, you don't matter? That's
Yeah.
not being inclusive.
Well, there's the funny thing, isn't it? So if you take same-sex marriage, for example, which we said, look, we had ways of giving people equal rights in the country, but that's not good enough. We want the term marriage. And you think, well, no, because then you take away the specific thing which talks about a biological man and woman and their biological children, and that's unique and it's special. But you're considered homophobic if you say anything like that, and you think, no, it's not homophobic, it's talking about the real science. And there are more people who are offended by that than want to take part in it. So you're absolutely right. What about those other people who are offended by it? They don't seem to matter.
It's heartbreaking, really, isn't it?
Mm, mm,
It's just the way this agenda has got completely out of control.
yeah.
Like, it was first of all with the, allowing gay marriage. Now they're saying about gay marriage is allowed in churches, isn't it?
It's an ongoing battle, and frankly, it's splitting the churches in half, because there are some people saying the whole religious argument is not one we enter into, but people feel passionate about it, and people feel the Bible's quite clear on what constitutes a marriage and what constitutes the Bible's definition of sin, for example. And you think, well, if you don't agree with that, fine, invent your own religion or make up your own church or something. But don't change that, because it is what it is, and it's done an awful lot of good for an awful long time. So you might want to leave it alone. But yeah.
Well, we actually split the Muslim Council of Wales up as well, because there were people there that were agreeing with this education. So on the actual council, and a lot of Muslims were really devastated, because they've got the man-woman values as well, isn't it? Well, I think every religion has, haven't they? They believe in the man-woman, and
I mean, whereas an organisation we would differ is that we kind of think it's one man and one woman, and that kind of becomes a bit variable. That's where we would kind of part ways with that, if you like. But you're absolutely right. It is splitting society up in unhelpful ways, unnecessary ways. No one's saying in a liberal democracy adults shouldn't be able to do what they want as long as they don't interfere with other people. That's what a liberal democracy is there for. But when it comes down to, we're going to teach your kids this from the age 3, and you can't say or do anything about it, that's a whole other story. Brilliant. Well, we'll put your details up on the video so people can see, and they can go and find out more about you and what you're doing. I don't suppose you've got anything in terms of time frames going forward, have you?
Do you know, we don't know yet. We filed the appeal. It was last week, but the court has come up with something else that we had to refile it. I won't go into sort of detail. The courts do sort of mess us about a little bit, to be honest. But so it was Monday, we actually had to refile the appeal. So we're just waiting now for them to accept it. So that's all we know for now. But I am going to say, if we don't win this appeal, we will be bringing it to the Supreme Court. We're not giving up on this.
Well, exactly. And I think that's probably where it'll end up. And good that it ends up there, because we might get a proper decision, that acts as a precedent for everyone else. I think it's amazing what you ladies are doing. Just, I mean, history says don't mess about with Welsh women. Do you know what I mean? But clearly the Welsh government can't recall that. And they've picked a fight, which, well, you're not wearing a red coat today, but who knows, hey? I think you're doing a fantastic job. Very, very impressive. You Welsh mums, all power to you. Thank you so much for talking to us. Will you come back and give us an update at some point?
Absolutely. Whenever you want us to come back on, Tony, either myself or another member of Public Child Protection Wales would be more than happy to come back on. Thank you so much.
Listen, Lucia, it's such a privilege to talk to you. I could talk to you all day. You're absolutely fantastic. But come back sometime. We'll pick it up further. Meanwhile, all the best with what you're doing. All power to Public Child Protection Wales. Keep up the great work, you wonderful Welsh mums.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony.
Take care.
For the opportunity.
Bye now.
Bye now.